Hey guys, welcome to Sci-Fi Story Ideas. This is a new one-off event for Script Camp. We are a screenwriting community that covers many topics, including sci-fi. And today's class, I thought we'd look at some headlines in the world of tech and futurology and see if what stories that me and my guest Eli will be able to sort of come up with based on these. And we're going to also look at articles that you guys link us in the chat. So if you're not joining us on Discord, you should come and join our Discord server, which you can find by going to scriptcamp.net, and here you can also sign up for membership for all of our other classes and events if you want. Unlimited membership includes access to every single class and event, over 100 hours of classes like this every single month, as well as boot camps that take you all the way through from idea to finished draft, big discounts on consultations and proofreads, and access to our video library, which includes all of the previous recordings of classes. So you should sign up if you're interested in classes like this and many others. Let's get into introductions. So this is a staged channel, meaning that everyone else besides me and the guest are muted by default, but you can use that text chat to talk to us throughout the class. Here's just a tiny bit about me. So I am a pro screenwriter who's been signed since 2017, moved to Hollywood in 2015, right after college, and have placed in Nickel semifinals, Launchpad Top 10, written for Creepshow for the Shudder Network, and I teach the boot camps and weekly Writers Lab. I also brought up your little bio here. Anything you want to tell us about you, Eli? I just took your Facebook profile picture because that seemed like you were okay having that on the.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's very funny. Yeah, no, I'm just an improviser out in Chicago. Studied science for a long time, and I guess that's perfect for today.
Yeah, maybe tell us about your background in science.
Sure, yeah. So I studied neuroscience originally. So getting down into little neurons and all sorts of chemicals in between them and stuff. And now I teach biology and chemistry and psychology to high schoolers. And yeah, that's me.
And in college, you studied this, and in addition to doing improv and theater and performance, we also did a lot of shows together. You were in a bunch
We
of
did!
shows. Yeah. Plays.
Yep.
I did a lot of plays every semester.
You did a lot of plays, man. Yeah.
Yeah, more than once a semester sometimes. And Eli was in some of them, and I was in some stuff with him on stage, and we just did lots of sort of theater-y, film-y stuff at the same time back in George Mason University, the good old days.
That's literally what I was going to say, yes.
So you are much more science-y brained than me, and I'm much more the other stuff brained, like coming up with words, for instance, like you can see.
Sure.
So
Sure.
there was the reason that I was inspired to ask you for this class was a story about slime tanks, which I think you might, or like algae tanks, which I feel like you may have sort of strong opinions on. So we'll get to that. Go
Okay,
ahead.
cool. Okay, no, I was just going to ask more about it. Sounds great.
Okay, more details on the slime tanks. Don't worry. We'll dive in with a big splash right into the slime tanks soon.
Ooh, yeah.
So let's go over the upcoming bootcamp dates. So if you're looking to learn how to write TV, novel, or features, we have many bootcamps starting this month. All in September, we have new pilot bootcamp starting Friday the 15th, 6 to 8 on Fridays for 6 weeks. Novel outline workshop just started yesterday. That's going to be running 12 to 2 on Saturdays. Feature bootcamp started today, just a few hours ago, and that is running for 8 weeks, Sundays 10 to noon. And then we have the next phase of our novel bootcamp going from outlining to actually writing the book. That's going to be September 30th, 12 to 2. And if you're a Script Camp member, you have access to all our classes and events on all our servers. So you should sign up and try some stuff out. Also next week, Writing for Young Readers, September 10th, 12 to 2 on WordCamp. Okay, so sci-fi stuff. Sci-fi stories are often centered around a central big idea. Books have more than one, can have more than one big idea, but movies and TV shows more often than not are going to use this kind of core, there's going to be a topic, and there's going to be a big idea linked to that topic as sort of like the centerpiece from which everything else of the story is kind of derived. Often we're asking this question, what if the world developed in this way? Though we might also be asking questions like, what if it did develop, or like, what? So we're often asking the audience to look ahead to the future, but some subgenres of sci-fi ask us to reimagine something different happen in the past, or things like this. But the big idea is kind of at the heart of what makes a sci-fi idea work. So let's look at, for instance, like Altered Carbon. The topic is consciousness upload and posthumanism. the big idea is these things called sleeves, which are like bodies that humans can transfer their minds in between. So I think when we're going through these articles, what we're going to be looking for is that big idea at the heart of it, and then coming up with multiple variations on what that story could be in kind of different genres or approaches based on just whatever we think of, whatever seems fun. Here's some other examples of what big ideas are and how they work. So a topic is not the same as a big idea. Like Minority Report, for instance, the topic is criminal justice, but the approach to that topic, the speculative element of that, is the idea of pre-crime, which is this police agency that arrests people before they do the crime. So we're going to be sort of centering the discussion in a branch or type of science, and then coming up with a big idea to act as the kind of ground bedrock basis for that development as a story. Anything to add on this, Eli?
Nope.
Okay. We have a bunch of topics. Let me ask, what are your favorite topics in sci-fi? Or I guess these are just science topics that also are often explored through a sci-fi lens. What do you gravitate to?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I go through phases personally. I tend to more glom onto, I feel like, authors and just kind of explore what they're exploring at the time. So I somehow missed a lot of Ursula Le Guin growing up. So I'm on a big Ursula Le Guin kick right now. So a lot of human civilizations on other planets and tweaks to biology and how does that affect culture, I feel like is the kick I'm on right now. Have you read any, like, Left Hand of Darkness? Yes, the comments are saying Left Hand of Darkness.
Yeah, just brought it up.
Yeah.
I haven't actually read Le Guin yet. For some reason, I thought she was more fantasy than sci-fi.
She also has a fantastic series I just finished called A Wizard of Earthsea, which is her fantasy series for young adults. And it's great for adults, too. It's great for regular adults, old adults. So that's probably why you're thinking of that.
Yeah, right.
But, yeah, she initially big sci-fi writer.
And that topic for those would be, so you're saying something different, like speculative biology, I guess is what you call that?
Some of them, yeah. So, like, Left Hand of Darkness, for example, has a world in which everyone is genderless, and then occasionally, during, like, mating cycles, people will display one gender or the other sort of randomly, and it affects the whole structure of the civilization and, like, how people relate to each other, and there's these huge ramifications for like this small biological tweak that affects kind of a lot of what we've surrounded and based our civilization on. So yeah,
and that's what sci-fi is really good at, is just like you take the big idea and then you sort of extrapolate from that. And in a book, you can do a lot. You can kind of imagine how an entire society would be different in terms of what gender roles, family structures, all of that, just from the basic, reproductive biology of humans working slightly differently. Whereas we don't see that as much in movies, because movies are like essentially short stories that are only limited to like such a tight runtime that you just don't really have the space to be able to explore a whole culture in the same way in a movie as you would in a book.
Gotta get that HBO miniseries instead.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's what we all hope for. And sometimes even those get canceled. Like, Raised by Wolves canceled one season.
Oh, is that over? No, that's so sad.
Maybe two.
But I think two, yeah.
Yeah, they did sadly cancel that. So we've got some sample topics here. We got your aliens, your AI, and I kind of rank these from most popular at the top to least popular at the bottom, or just things that I have seen the least, I guess. So aliens and AI, time travel being at the most, 80s kind of blockbuster movies kind of really extrapolated as much as they could from that. And then we've seen a lot of alternate dimension multiverse stuff in the past couple of years, everything from your Doctor Stranges to your Everything Everywheres your Stranger Things and stuff like that. Space travel and colonization used to be a much more common topic for sci-fi back during the space race times, but now it's a little bit less common. You still do see Ad Astra and Interstellar and stuff like this sometimes. And in books, of course, space opera still uses that as a centerpiece for it. Then we have things like mutation. Post-apocalypse, of course, had its huge day and has not exactly gone away. It's still a big genre now. And some of these are genres in and of themselves, too. Like, apocalypse is a topic of science fiction as well as its own sort of genre. VR cyberspace had a big day when those things were... Like, I find that the times where sci-fi authors go crazy on an idea is when that idea is first emerging into the public consciousness. So, like, in the 90s, there was a ton of cyberspace stuff. Like, most sort of big franchises had, like, their cyber... Like, maybe I'm thinking of just horror franchises, but there was, like, a cyberspace Hellraiser movie, right? There's like a cyber. Did they do a cyberspace Jason Voorhees? No, they did Jason in Space, but they didn't do cyberspace. There may have been a VR scene in it though.
Mm-hmm.
So, we see lots of that when we see authors really dive into a topic when that sort of emerges into the public consciousness, and you can see. I mean, we had such a big apocalyptic genre on the heels of the scientific community starting to explain more and learn more about global warming and things like this, right? Like the late 90s, early 2000s is when that started to really kind of spread through culture, and people started getting anxious about it, and then we saw a million Hunger Games and things.
Yeah,
like
we shifted from the nuclear apocalypse to like the hot one.
Right, exactly.
Just kind of lurking around up forever, though. Yeah.
And then we have things like virus and germs, which obviously have been relevant recently, but we have not exactly seen the same explosion of virus and germ-related media just because...
I don't think we want to see it.
I think we're
good. I think we're good
exactly.
now.
That would be... I mean, there's still some... And
sure.
I've been surprised to see even... What was it called? What was that HBO show?
Oh, The Last of Us?
Station 11. The first episode is like, oh, this is a COVID show.
Yeah.
And that was surprising to me because it was such a no-go zone in pitch meetings and stuff for a while. People were like, your idea has to have nothing to do with germs at all.
Yeah, I think it's because it was a book originally, right? And I think it had a following. I wonder if that helped, yeah.
It must have, yeah. But I think we're allowed... I think in terms of production, we're allowed to do COVID stuff now, but there is a distaste for it from a lot of people, so it's kind of...
Yeah, like... I don't think that we'll have apocalypse media after the apocalypse. I think people will be like, yeah, we're good.
That would just become contemporary media at that point, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would just be, yeah, it's true.
At the bottom, I have Uplifting, which is big in books, but not big on movies and TV outside of Planet of the Apes. And
Uplifting being...
Yeah, you do like surgery or crazy science on an animal or something else to make it way smarter.
Sure.
And scientific divination or predestination, which are things like Devs, or the show on FX, the Alex Garland show, which I thought was actually pretty cool and sort of posits that given all the random probabilities of the universe, you actually could make a machine that discerns what is going to happen next and stuff like that. So cool, unexplored kind of ideas there.
Foundation has that kind of premise too, somewhere in there, right?
I haven't seen that one yet, or I haven't read it.
Yeah.
Seen it. I think the book and show are pretty different, I hear, but I want to check them out. Cool. So the most common sort of genres that sci-fi movies fit into really well are horror thriller, because I think an easy speculation is, what if the big idea could murder you? And then we have action, which is essentially asking this question: what if the big idea was either the enemy or the way that we would combat the enemy, or both? And that would, your Men in Black, it's kind of supposing both, right? And not only are we fighting aliens, we're using advanced technology to fight those aliens, and we got it from the aliens. And then, I'm seeing that my mic volume is low compared to Eli's on the stream. Let me turn up my mic volume. Hopefully that's better. Okay, so what else? Adventure, which is going to be stories that don't involve as much focus on direct interpersonal human or intelligent entity on intelligent entity violence, and are still involve danger and peril, but they're going to be things that involve a lot of, for instance, space travel and hazards, but not necessarily, people shooting at each other. And then we have drama, which you don't see that many of these, but once in a while you'll see like a Her or Gattaca, Truman Show, Arrival, or something like this that kind of takes a sci-fi speculative element and asks how it might affect people in their relationships, for instance, or development of a society, any number of these things. And then there's other stuff like comedies and things like this too, like your Futurama or whatever, but they're just not in the sort of main group of what people consider to be normal, quote, sci-fi. So I think that we're going to be able to, if we're at a loss for what to do with the story, we can always come to this sheet, right, and ask, okay, what's the horror thriller version of this? What's the action version of this? What's the drama version of this? And that just can be a nice way to shape the ideas from the early stage.
Yeah.
And
here
we
have a bunch of
go ahead.
How deadly it is. Sorry, I'll stop it.
Yeah, how much it wants to murder you.
Yeah.
We have subgenres here as well. We don't have to go into way too much, but do you have a favorite subgenre?
Ooh, do I? I mean, I'm a big cyberpunk boy, like OG cyberpunk stuff. Love some Gibson. Satires are great. I think those are my big two. Yeah.
Cyberpunk satire, like Snow Crash, for instance, being both at once.
Oh yeah, I love a snow crash.
Hell yeah, they've been trying to
What do
make
you?
a TV show or movie work for a long time. I don't think they've.
I know. I don't think you could do it, or at least it would be peculiar.
It'd have to
We'll
be a
see.
show almost. I feel like I
It
don't
would
know.
have to be a show. Yes. What are your favorites, Connor?
Good question. I really like the sort of body horror elements of cyberpunk a lot. So the
Oh
kind
yeah.
of gritty, grimy, poor people cyberpunk, where it's like, well, I live in a shack and I have a bunch of digital chips in my body, and every day I need to refill my memory banks in order to make it to another day at the silicon mine or whatever. I kind of like that gritty, grimy kind of cyberpunk and dystopia stuff.
It's sadly relatable. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, one of these days we'll all have, various fibers and chips inside of our bones.
Fiber's good for you, I hear.
They say that, yeah, carbon fiber, perhaps, maybe the best of all. We have some genre terms. We don't have to go back to this, but we can just refer back to this page as needed. We have a couple terms that have a slash in the middle to sort of distinctify that. Like, for instance, force field and hard light so force fields are sort of a concept that are based on this idea of hard light. Force field being a term invented by William Hope Hodgson for his 1911 book The Nightland, which was like really, really early post-apocalyptic sci-fi. We have a couple things that you don't even see that much in movies, like megastructures or psionics. I guess sometimes you do see psionics in movies and stuff like Firefly or whatever, but just some good terms to refer back to here if we need to. All right, shall we start with liquid trees?
Oh, I think we talked about this, right?
Yeah.
Or did I see this separately? Okay,
don't know,
I
but
love
this
liquid trees.
This just reminded me of you, and it.
How am I supposed to take that, Connor?
I don't know. So here's what this is just a tweet, not actually an article, but it says scientists create liquid trees, a tank full of water and microalgae that could be an alternative to trees in urban areas. And maybe you can see the reply tweet down below, Eli.
Big day for people that wanted trees to be replaced by green slime in a glass tank. Parentheses, Eli.
Yep, that's what I was thinking.
Trees are great. Trees are great, but where you can't have a tree, you can have an algae tank. It'd be pretty cool.
I don't mind the slime tank. And there's a
Yeah.
let me share the slides with the class so you guys can actually browse these as you please. And if you want to check it out, there's like another sort of comment reply post on this where somebody really goes into depth on why this is actually kind of a good idea, and why they think it's great. Let me just bring it up here. And here's what they respond. I don't know if this person has any actual qualifications or whatever, but I just liked their reply. Maybe you can weigh in, Eli. So where is it? Algae is really good at producing oxygen, more efficient than trees. The scientists don't want to replace trees. This, just to clarify, the actual potential is putting these down in places where you can't put trees for some reason. And in addition, it is going to be used in conjunction with trees or to supplement trees rather than to completely. We're not going to cut down trees and put slime tanks in their place, although we could. And then, what is it? If the tanks are efficient as the scientists claim, one tank equals 2 10-year-old trees. So, seems to me we could use this to purify the air or, remove carbon dioxide from the air and output oxygen. The one in the picture that we have back there was actually on a bench with solar lights and ports to charge your phone. So that's a nice little touch. There's not really difficult maintenance. You just remove some of the algae every month and then use it as fertilizer, so it's all kind of renewable. And it apparently costs less to maintain than a tree would overall. So this person is arguing that you can put one up faster, it costs less to water it and to maintain it and all those trim it and all those other things.
True.
Then at the end of the day, this person really wants a slime tank, it would seem. I guess I don't have to read this all out, but they go on about how the slime is their boyfriend and they love it. So I like this touch at the bottom. They do mention that maybe they could just partner with Nickelodeon or something like that. And just lean into the slime tank thing.
That'd be great,
All right, so let's just let's start with
algae on people.
Sorry, I cut you off there.
No, go for it.
Maybe we could dump it on people. That would be a nice way to promote it as well. Like maybe a dunk tank. Oh, why don't we set up dunk tanks with these things and use that to raise money to buy more? Local politician sits in an overtop green slime tank. You throw a beanbag at him for $5. and then, or maybe just you could do it all remotely too. That's kind of a good idea. Like, imagine you just tune into a live stream, and you can pay money to fire a little robot catapult at the bullseye to dunk your local governor.
Is the implication that this is a world in which like all politicians are just humiliated constantly?
I just can't imagine people not tuning in to see that, I guess, is what I'm saying. I mean, who
I
else?
can't imagine
Who
a
do you wanna
politician
dunk?
being willing to do it, but I would love a world in which they would be.
Who do you want to dunk in the tank?
Oh man, I think okay. What if we round up big oil executives and we have to dunk them in the algae tanks?
Okay, this is a good idea. And in this case, they would have to sort of be supporting the underlying idea of the slime tanks, though, right?
Yeah, or they're like it's like a punishment. You know, they're like they're
see,
forced
so-
to be dunked for their crimes,
Like a witch trial is what you're suggesting here.
like a Nickelodeon-sponsored witch trial. Yes.
Oh, that's a good idea. Okay, so let's maybe just start with whatever you want to share about these algae tanks. Anything that you know from your studies, or just like things you were quite into biology, so you know how this works better than I do. Maybe you just want to start by telling us, what do you think? What does this make you think of?
Yeah, I guess my question is, what they're doing with all the algae. I've got the link open. I'm trying to find out. But I mean, it would be great for things like inner city pollution fixing, right? Absorbing things like CO2, pumping out more oxygen. It doesn't offer the benefits that trees would with things like shade relief from temperature.
That is the main thing we lose, isn't it?
It really. I was walking around. It's 90 degrees in Chicago today, weirdly. And you're walking on the side with the shade and the trees, and it's nice. There's like basic ecological things we need like that algae tanks don't provide, but they would provide some relief from things like pollution, which I think would be good, right?
I would say so. I would guess so.
Yeah.
And I guess also we could then use so I think they're more space efficient than trees too. Obviously, if you pack a couple of slime tanks together, I can't believe I keep calling them slime tanks, but what are we supposed to call them?
Liquid trees, says the slide behind you.
Liquid
but I hate that
trees.
too. I hate that too.
Something about that just sounds wrong also. But in any case, I'm sure you could pack in a bunch more liquid trees into the space where you fit trees before. Obviously, they don't look as nice, so we'd have to dress them up. Obviously, maybe we could do cool murals on them or something, or would that prevent them from photosynthesizing properly or something?
That would probably be a problem, yeah.
How could we make them more beautiful? Different colored slimes?
Well, yeah, you could try to get different algae, but some other algae aren't like good, you know. They're probably packing the most efficient algae in there.
Right.
So it's probably got to be that gross, horrific color, you know?
We've got to find some way that we can incorporate art in them as well, I feel. Like,
you could make a sculpture. It wouldn't be efficient, right? But you could make a big glass sculpture and fill it with algae.
That'd be so. There's a sculpture in the tank, and we fill it up maybe most of the way.
The tank is a sculpture.
Oh, the tank itself. You solved it. Make it in the shape of a tree. We fixed it. We've recreated trees in their entirety. They're just palm tree shaped glass shells filled with slime.
I can already see the problem with these though, which is that, like, classically scientists, as much as I love science, we don't account for like basic human impulses. Connor, how long do you give it before someone just smashes one of these?
Like 1 day or less.
Right? Like you can't smash a tree. And I think that's why they stick around. But I think if you could, people would, you know?
If you could just stick a screwdriver into a tree and have the tree leak out all over the road, then people would definitely start siphoning trees.
If you could punch a tree and it would just go flying, yeah, people would love that.
So this is kind of giving... Should we move into story mode? Because this is giving me some ideas. I mean, someone's going around...
I mean, what are you envisioning? I'm envisioning like a coming-of-age teenage vandals that wander the streets and ruin algae tanks.
Oh, okay. So
are you thinking more thriller?
I was thinking slime heist. Yeah. As soon as you said people are stealing the slime, then
what are they stealing it for?
Well, what can we do with a lot of it, right? I mean, maybe you can't exactly hold it for ransom because I assume they can get more slime. But if we use all of it,
easy.
What could we do with, let's say, a ton of slime? And by slime, I mean algae water, I guess.
A ton of algae in particular. I'm sure you could make some sort of horrific foodstuffs out of it. It would not be pleasant.
Okay. So
You'd need some sort of facility for that, I think, though.
then in that case, because Eli, or not Eli, Nacho in the comments mentioned there's an ingredient made from algae used to make ice cream and other foods. So
Auger. It's like a thickening agent, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I've got it then. So we're going to sell it to a foreign distributor who's going to use it and make, like, in a bunch of factories to distribute really cheap algae-based food. So they're looking to buy a lot of it.
Huh. I just feel like there'd be easier ways.
Maybe. There might be easier ways to make money than a slime heist. It's true. But, for instance, if that company... So,
Sure.
in my... Let's make this crime thriller, I guess. So, in this... let's just call it Slime Heist for now. Let's have it be called, actually, If You Can't Do the Slime, ... So the premise of this one is going to be there is a sketchy sort of criminal company, like a criminal foreign shell company. Let's put them in Siberia. Why not? And their plan is to, it's like a Siberian government minister that's like, oh, I can distribute all of this slime to all these local villages that I manage in the form of food. And so I need a whole lot of it. And then I'm going to be able to fill my food quota for the next 50 years, right? All I need is one big shipment of algae. So then they contact petty criminals in the U.S. right as this sort of algae slime is released and put up in, let's maybe just make it one city to begin with. So let's say in Los Angeles, or where would they probably do this? Seattle or something, right?
They would, I mean, you guys have the most pollution. I don't know. Sounds like a good place.
But also probably the most likely to have the people that would smash the slime the fastest. So I'm just speculating there. But in any case...
Smash that slime!
We do have to check the slime smashing probability ratios index before we build them in any city. So maybe Seattle or someone like that. Portland puts up the slime tanks. And so this foreign criminal contacts, or he puts out maybe even an open call, whoever brings me a ton of slime by the end of the month I'll pay $5 million or whatever.
So this is a comedy? Are you're envisioning? Or
Sure, it could be a comedy. Why not?
Okay, cool. I just love it's like Rat Race but with goo is what I'm envisioning.
Like Rat Race but with goo. Yeah, maybe there's a couple key slime sites around the city, and it's a race between different factions or different like petty criminal, like burglar level criminals that are trying to accumulate. Maybe like we can see. Oh, it'd be nice if each team had like a nice visual representation. They had like a slime tank at their base, and they were filling it up with as much as they could siphon or hijack from around the town. And so maybe we do a sort of all-in-one-night kind of thriller sort of thing, kind of like Good Time or something, or Run Lola Run a little bit, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Can I pitch off of yours?
Yeah, go ahead.
Someone in the comments. Who was it? Nacho mentioned the idea of rarity or preciousness of things like oxygen, which makes me think. I mean, when you think about the implementation of technology, like the rich areas would have this sort of thing, right? Mm-hmm. And if we are living in like a industrialized, like horrifically polluted future, the rich areas would be a lot nicer for having things like goo tanks, right? More oxygen, less pollutants. And so what about a crime heist where you've got criminal underdogs who are like living in a bad area of town and they're just stealing it for like a quality of life?
Oh, okay. Maybe they have a community that has their own slime tank that is empty, and because it's empty,
they don't even have any, right? They wouldn't apply these in poorer parts of town. So I wonder if you could go with like sort of a class rebellion via goo kind of thing.
This is good. Sort of altruistic slime heist in this case, where it's like we need to save our community by stealing from the rich and giving to the poor.
Yeah. The poor don't have enough goo. Yeah.
Yeah. The goo inequality is off the charts in this city.
Yeah.
We need to redistribute the goo. Maybe that's the title for you. Jason says it sounds like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie.
It does. It does.
Let's just make it a turtle movie and say the turtles are trying to steal the slime for their local community center that happens to be built over their sewer grate. Yeah. Okay. We've got a bunch more to get to. Shall we jump ahead, or do you have more ideas?
Oh, sure. No, they're just so strange to me. They won't work.
we can also come back later if we're like, that's good, but let's put a pin in it for now, and we can return to it. Rolls-Royce to build moon-base nuclear reactor. This is
why?
Go ahead.
Why Rolls-Royce? Do you think?
Let's read the article and check. There's not much to it. It's Daily Beast, so it's not like a fantastic site, but it has a link to the times.uk as well. which I don't know exactly how reputable that is, but there's links in
they make nuclear
chat.
reactors for submarines. They already do that. Crazy.
Yeah, a lot of companies that make cars also will be making other
nuclear reactors.
Making nuclear reactors, yeah. No, just making other stuff. So Rolls-Royce has been given funding to build a nuclear reactor to power a base on the moon, the UK Space Agency announced on Friday. The British luxury car firm, which also manufactures nuclear reactors for submarines, will receive $3.5 million, which to me does not sound like that much to do this, but okay, to build the lunar microreactor, which is hoped to be ready to be sent to the moon by 2029. All space missions depend on a power source to support systems for communication, life support, and science experiments, the agency said in a statement. Nuclear power has the potential to dramatically increase the duration of future lunar missions and their scientific value. NASA's planning to put humans back on the moon in 2025. What do you think?
Honestly, I mean, I think that a lot of the problems with nuclear power would be totally circumvented by putting it on the moon. It's never a great idea, but it's never a terrible idea. It's about how you implement it, and the moon circumvents a lot of the issues. I kind of like this. The design is terrible, but...
Yeah, I don't know if that's the real design or if that's just some...
I'm sure it's not.
Why does it look like a phone booth with a set of helicopter rotors on top of it?
Yeah. I want to meet the guy who designed that. It's beautiful.
So maybe I think this would be part of a base, right? So this is like a maybe even under the ground. Not the Earth, under the moon ground.
The regolith.
Yeah, maybe we dig down and make it kind of like a sort of like a generator in the heart of the base, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess it depends on how you're transporting it, but yeah, you can just put it wherever and probably pump power through power lines. There's nothing that's going to really... Well, I guess you'd have issues with... Well, this would be my one concern, is how they're protecting it from things like micrometeors or things like that, like space junk that might be a problem.
Okay, this is maybe starting to feel like a story when we have the various threats and complications that could arise, dangers that could arise. Obviously, dangers are going to be where our mind probably first goes with something like this, because we think of nuclear as being very dangerous and used for lots of dangerous things, although, obviously it is a complicated issue. It's less dangerous than a lot of people assume, but it still has
much
a risk.
Less, yeah. And honestly, with this, okay, you could, if you go full supervillain on this, you could just jettison a nuclear reactor onto planet Earth.
Yeah.
That's pretty horrific.
Would it burn up in the atmosphere, though, or would it...
I don't know. I feel like you'd still have some issues, probably, right? Maybe not.
I'm not sure if it would get through. I guess it depends how much shielding it has, right?
Yeah.
So, but I could see in a Bond movie that something like that could happen, sure.
Yeah.
So let's maybe, to challenge and stretch ourselves for this story segment, let's ask, what would be a story idea that does not revolve around a danger caused by the nuclear reactor? We can do the danger route after, but just to stretch our feelers a little bit first.
Yeah, I don't know, Connor. Why don't you tell me?
Okay. Let's say the nuclear reactor becomes an interesting, or a point of interest for aliens. It attracts aliens. They're looking for nuclear fuel in space, or nuclear energy in space. They show up at the moon base, and they want the reactor. They don't want to negotiate with Earth. They only want to negotiate with the scientists here. And maybe they need the reactor to fix some big problem on their ship or on their planet, and they have a limited time to do it, so we can't, call Earth and ask what to do. What do you think?
I like it. I don't know. I think I'd be curious about alien motivation for why they want it, given that I would anticipate they'd be more advanced almost. So I'm wondering, I think the character motivation there, I want to know.
Maybe their ship has broken down on the moon, and they need a backup generator to get off the moon.
They have a flat tire.
Yeah, they have a flat generator on their ship, and now they have 2 hours. They're like, we need to get back to our planet, or else it'll be destroyed. We don't have time to negotiate with Earth and figure it all out. We'd like this reactor. I know maybe it's an international team of astronauts, so some astronauts are like, we can't give the aliens the reactor. We have that's gonna both endanger the Earth and also annoy my bosses back in Russia. And some people are like, my group wants you to, in fact, not give them the reactor, and instead try to trick them into staying on the moon so we can come up and study them. So we have sort of different factions that would spring out from the fact that this has just drawn the interest and attention of these aliens. And of course, we have the added danger of if something goes wrong and somebody pulls a gun or whatever, they could rig it to blow and kill everybody. So there's always higher stakes there.
Just an alien pulling out a 9mm, you know?
Oh god, that'd be cool. Marvin the Martian just shows up.
I'm gonna pitch you. I don't know how to feel about this one yet, so I'm gonna pitch you something, and please feel free to incorporate ideas into it. But one thing that's fascinating to me about space is that it's just like bad for you to live up there. Like the radiation is pretty intense. Even if you protect things well enough, you'll be okay. But like a lot of astronauts have damage to things like DNA, their brain, things like that. And I love the idea of the moon as like, yeah, we're putting this nuclear thing up there, but there's already nuclear stuff up there. You could beam that energy down to Earth if you had a bunch of them up there, right?
Can you?
All these reactors. Yeah. You could use lasers to beam energy directly to Earth. I mean, you could even put a bunch of solar panels up there and try to do that. It would just be kind of expensive. So I kind of like the idea of like, I don't know how to get here, but like a bunch of just like hereditary mutants living on the moon, just tending like nuclear silos, just irradiated by space radiation, but sort of like working away for the betterment of humanity on this moon they're exiled to.
That's almost like a TV show. So
sure.
The setup of the show would be there's like a community of space bases, and people have been up here so long that we've probably advanced Earth to the point where it's a utopian society by now, using all the energy we can just beam directly back to them. But the trade-off is we have to have a sub-race of mutant humanoids that have lived in squalor in their space communities for generations, all to tend these various reactors that maybe even give them different sorts of mutations depending on which reactor you... This just sounds like a role-playing game if I take it that route. I'm a level 5 dark side moon paladin, and I have 3 arms because I tended the green crystal reactor.
Nice. You have 2 actions. Very good.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe the TV show is a fun place to take it, because we wanted to take place on the moon to actually use the plot element that we have here, right?
Yeah, and then we could incorporate, honestly. You could have a moon rebellion. You could jettison all those nuclear reactors at the Earth, right? We could work it in.
Sure, yep. And there's also always just this sort of really basic action idea of... I didn't really realize you could beam energy to the Earth. That actually makes control of the space really impactful and, important. So I could see just a ship full of space pirates, maybe even the first ever space pirates, so people aren't prepared for it or aware of this yet. They show up to hijack the base and take control of the reactor for themselves, and now these wimpy, nerdy scientists that have never fired guns in their lives find themselves having to defend the nuclear reactor from these bad guys. That's sort of like the 90s sort of Die Hard-ish approach or whatever, right?
Die Hard on the moon! Let's do it, Connor!
Someone needs to. Our last pitches are, Nacho has mentioned Moonzilla, so we could always have some microbe on the moon that gets... turned into a big kaiju beast. Their attempts to protect themselves from the reactor lead to its meltdown. That could, sure, that's a good plot element too. Nacho suggesting maybe the whole moon is an egg.
Yeah, it's a Doctor Who reference, I believe.
Oh, I missed that. Okay. Not sure how the I think the reactor would cook the egg, wouldn't it? That would be the world's biggest omelet. Okay, let's check the next one.
All right.
I think you'll like this one. Why don't you read it out for us?
Pig kidney works in brain dead man for a month. A step toward animal-human transplants.
Yeah, this is a thing recently.
Sure. I mean,
go ahead.
Just for the group, I mean, we do use animal parts in transplants sometimes. I think for things like heart valves, right?
Yeah, and I've also seen fish skin used on burn victims.
Yeah. Doesn't that look cool? Yeah.
No, I hate it. It's like the last thing I'd ever want. Like, if I get that badly burned, just pull the plug on me, honestly.
It's so cool. I love it.
I don't want the fish skin. You can be a shape of Waterman if you want, but I'm good. So they will graft fish skin over top of severe burns to help it heal better. I don't know why that's better than human skin is necessarily, but it's certainly... Maybe you know as a science man.
No, I don't actually. I'd be very curious about it.
Certain enzymes or vitamins they have in their
maybe.
flesh that helps us heal better than regular human skin would. I don't know. But in any case, pig kidney works in a brain-dead man for a month. A step toward animal-human transplants. Where does this take you?
cyberpunk, but everyone's got hooves, right?
Oh shit.
Is that where we're going?
Cyber changelings?
It's like a solar punk, but yeah. Everyone's got like animal parts and stuff.
Oh yeah, it's like there's a role-playing game called Rippers, where it's set in a sort of Victorian Gothic kind of world where the heroes are people that slice limbs off the monsters and graft them onto themselves. So it's
that's so cool.
Sort of like that, right? Where we're imagining this is like a sort of Shadowrun or Altered Carbon type future where your personhood is defined, or your sort of I guess a lot of things could be defined by which animal parts you choose to incorporate into yourself. Do you have the high quality ones or the low quality ones? I imagine the lower quality, the poor people animal parts would be the really obvious ones. Like you're like a Minotaur man, right? You have like cow legs or whatever walking around. You have like a big obvious grafted like extra arm or something along those lines. And then the rich people ones would probably be more subtle, and it's like you have the heart of a leopard grafted onto your heart so you can run for a long time, stuff like that. Is that how you would see it?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of sci-fi that deals with things, I feel like gene splicing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like people get like animal DNA spliced in, but I think it's so much more horrific to imagine it grafted to you, you know?
Yeah. Or grafted.
And I like that.
Inside you. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and all of my ideas so far have dealt with class, so of course I love your angle on it. Great. Yeah, very on board. Yeah.
So maybe this is like a Shadowrun style. Again, this starts to feel like a TV show for me, unless we start to angle it around a particular event. Obviously, a heist seems like the easy way to go, so we could always do the
you
animal
just
part
love
heist.
Your heists. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like that's the thing. You can with any idea, you can ask, "How would this kill you?" or "How would I heist it?" So let's try to come up with a plot for this one.
Sure.
And the world that we've sort of set up might work for the show, but in terms of like a pilot or a feature, let's think of a goal that the characters could have that would take full advantage of this plot element. Maybe if there's a person that has really rare augmentations, people are trying to get them and like steal their limbs, like Repo Man.
They're like endangered species limbs that like were commonplace at one point, but now they're like those species are extinct or whatever.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Maybe actually a lot of animal types are extinct except for the most common ones in like factory farming, like livestock and stuff. So a lot of people will get like a cow heart towards the end of their life if they can afford it, stuff like that. But no one has cheetah parts anymore. And
what's a cheetah? Never heard of it.
Right. This is good. So in that case, it's all about the market for different animal parts, and I guess we'd have even like the hero would be the person that has the best parts of all, and they've been on the run for years on their little cheetah legs or with their little cheetah heart, whatever it is, and they're like the ultimate specimen. Oh, let's call it Specimen. That's just a cool title.
That's good. That's great. That's fun too, because you would have to be, and I feel like they use this in cyberpunk stories, but you'd have to be very careful when you are trying to like kill someone to take their limbs, right? Because you don't want to hurt whatever the important parts are that you're trying to take from them.
Right, that makes it a little easier for the person trying to get away, because you know they won't just like shoot you from afar, but they will sort of try to capture you and do surgery on you to take them, maybe using like tranquilizer, tasers, stuff like that.
Sure. It's all there's like poachers with trank guns.
You know what well, yeah, there would be. That's a cool image, or a really cool scene at the very least. That'd be a good opening scene.
Yeah.
Like there's a bunch of people in a futuristic bar, and then guys in like safari uniforms smash in through the windows with their trank guns and trank somebody and do the surgery right there. That'd be freaky.
Hell yeah.
What if though the best way to recover the limbs is not through sending soldiers with guns, but it's to send another modified person to retrieve them?
So a natural predator of that animal.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, what's a natural predator for? I guess
humans. No.
Yeah. What's the natural predator to a big cat? I guess they don't really have that many, do they?
There's not one. No, there's not one. Not for a big cat. Yeah.
But maybe we could do something like, imagine we're gonna splice like venomous snake stuff with the hunter-killer guy, and that way, like, he doesn't need to be as fast or strong as the lion guy because he has poison fingernails or whatever. So I think maybe we have evil
like fingers.
Snake, not 4 fingers. I mean, he would have like glands in his fingertips or something. He could spit poison or something too. That would be cool.
Love the image, because you could really get fucked up. Or I don't know if I can swear on this. So sorry. You get really messed up with this. Okay, great. Yeah, each finger could be a snake head. He could just have like snake head fingers, right?
Like Medusa hands.
Like a lot of scenes of him trying to use a phone and he can't do it.
He has to get them to cooperate in order to do anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Wait, that's how he would eat now, wouldn't it be? So he's got a meal in front of him. Imagine him having a scene where he's just having a conversation.
Mice!
Oh my god, a tank full. Yeah, he's at a fancy restaurant, and then he just holds up his hand. The waiter brings him like a box of mice, and then he just like sticks his hands in through the two hand sockets, and we just hear the snakes just snapping up the mice.
They do that snake thing where they get really fat where the mouse is, so he's got these like fat fingers as the mouse is slowly pumped through it.
It would just go up your wrist into your stomach. Yeah. Oh my god, that's
I
horrific.
like this character.
Okay.
I think this is our character.
Snake finger guy. Yeah. Maybe that's the answer. This is good.
Yeah.
Let's check the chat for some other ideas. Jack suggests we could drug them, then perform surgery while they're asleep. Yeah, so maybe if the person has like a sedative poison, that could be his way that he retrieves them. He paralyzes them. Oh, like a spider guy would paralyze them first, and then he has like a team. He snaps his fingers. The guys come out of the van and they do the rest of the dirty work for him. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
This is making me feel a little like. Did you see Upgrade?
No, which one was that?
Oh, it's a cyberpunk movie, action body horror type movie from a couple years ago. You should definitely watch it. You will love it.
Okay.
I won't spoil it for you, but it involves modified people on the good side, and then there's modified people on the bad side, and that's always just so fun.
Very nice. Very nice. I love this concept from Nacho about smuggling endangered species organs across checkpoints.
Oh, that's a cool idea too. Yeah, if this was a show, maybe we could have a whole episode about that.
Mm-hmm. Where you've got just you get modded out, but it's only just to get the product somewhere.
Right.
I think it's very fun.
Yeah, like coyotes that are actually coyotes. That one would just be called Coyotes, obviously. Is that? And they all have like, dog. They bark like dogs when they're upset.
Sure. Yeah.
That's
their only modification is their vocal cords.
Yeah. And they can go, ow!
Ow!
This is kind of stupid, but kind of good.
Yeah.
Maybe we can come back to this if
sure.
We can put a pin in this one.
Sure.
We have a couple more, and then and maybe I'll pick like 2 or 3 of my favorites, and then we will ask the room if they want to submit articles for us to look at too. And for our second part of the class, we'll just see what people want to share. So I'm going to pick my favorite one. I have a couple others about a lot of cells and jars doing stuff. This is my favorite of all of them. Why don't you read this one?
Oh my god, I read so much about this. It's crazy.
Oh, perfect.
Oh.
Can you read the headline?
Sure. Woman with paralysis speaks through avatar 18 years after a stroke thanks to a brain implant and AI. This is wild. Did you read about this in depth, Connor?
I read the article on it, but not more than that.
Okay. Yeah.
Tell us about it.
It's so like one of the big limits in neuroscience is the fact that it's really hard to read the brain without being like overly invasive. And even when you're very invasive, it's hard. I mean, things are happening at the cell to cell level. It's so hard to suss that out. And so they're using these like I think they're doing some invasive work, as you could tell from the plug in her brain. But on the flip side of that, like the electrodes that we're using are just so much more sensitive and able to read in so much more detail. And then they're using things like AIs to take all of that complexity and then suss out what's actually happening in the brain to the point where they can at a pretty decent rate, not like normal human speech, but at a pretty decent rate, basically pluck words out of her brain. And then it works so well that they were like, wow, that's crazy. We didn't think we'd get to this next step, but let's try having an AI or an avatar that says these words to people. And they used an AI to replicate her voice from before her stroke to speak the words she was thinking. Madness. The level of like brain interfaces that we're going to have in a couple years are like truly terrifying. And what's really nice about it is theoretically, you wouldn't have to do this sort of like neural link invasive surgery. You might be able to get something that is just reading your brain non-invasively if we can get to a detailed enough and complex enough level with both the electrodes and the AI.
Like a helmet or like a little attachment of some kind? Yeah,
that would be the dream, is a non-invasive attachment that you could use to do this kind of stuff. There's her what do we got? 75% accuracy. 80 words per minute when natural human speak is like 150 to 200. They tested this on somebody else, I think, a while back, and he could only do a couple words, and it was really low. Like 80's really good.
And 1,024 word vocabulary so far. That's enough to communicate for sure. And the avatar, is that designed to look like her too? It doesn't seem like it is.
Well,
is it?
so it's designed to look like her pre-stroke. So
it's like an RSI. Do you know the Matrix term RSI for residual self-image?
No, I do now. I
so
did not before. No.
This is the idea from. I think the Matrix might have invented the term, or it might have just been something in late '90s cyberpunk. But the idea that the way that you see yourself is the way that you show up in the Matrix, or the like sort of idealized version of how you imagine yourself, which I guess in the '90s involved a lot of trench coats and frosted tips, so that's what they wished they looked like all the time.
I was gonna say, like, depending on the day, I would either look a lot nicer or a lot worse in the Matrix, depending on
how your current mood. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, damn, your avatar looks like you should download some patch to make yourself not look like shit. What are you doing?
You're just a puddle today, man. How you doing?
So there's so many directions to go with this one.
Well, so, and the real, I mean, so I was just listening to do you listen to Ologies at all, Connor? Do you know what that is?
No, what's that?
Ologies is a podcast hosted by this actress, and she just interviews like different professionals from different scientific fields about their specific field. So it gets really nitty gritty. Sometimes, like, she interviewed a squirrel expert, and that episode's really lovely because they just talk about catching squirrels and the science behind it. But she interviewed a neuroethicist, so somebody who's like thinking about the ethics of this kind of technology. And the scary part is that, like, there's a lot of benefits to this, but then imagine that you have people in like an authoritarian country, and polygraphs are already kind of a problem in those scenarios, but imagine if you could just read somebody's brain and know what's happening in their head with just a little hat, right? A lot of big problems that can pop up from this, but a lot of really beautiful things too. And we're going there.
Yeah.
So we gotta figure it out.
For sure. It's almost like this feels like we almost need a whole session just to talk about ideas for this one almost.
Sure,
because I could see a TV show, I could see a movie, I could see a book or book series that could fully encompass this, but let's maybe go to
some kind of a heist, maybe.
We could heist something like this. I mean, what's the better way to come out of retirement than with what'd you say?
Thought heist.
Thought heist. That's just Inception.
Thought heist. I guess that's Inception. Yeah.
Yeah. So what about imagine what's the next step? Isn't it we have a mech suit that walks around and that you can control with your brain too, and now you can speak through that, and now people with full body paralysis are able to walk around, speak normally, and also have a full mobility back.
I thought you were like, what the logical extension of this is giant. And I was like, wait, what?
Well, start with normal size mechs, or start with human sized exosuits that are able to walk around. Maybe you customize it, dress it up, you get all the cosmetics for it, and then you can have your full mobility and communication back that you never would have had before, right?
Yeah, for people who are like paralyzed or things like that.
I feel like we're not that far away from that being possible.
I mean, a lot of that tech exists. They used to, I'm sure you've seen this, they use those exosuits in some places occasionally for things like heavy loading and things like that. Like they're trying to test some of it. So it's definitely feasible, and it's just like a cost point issue, I think, right?
Right.
So
we could go the direction of almost like a Black Mirror style drama where we're following a group of people that have previously been paralyzed, or they have disabilities of various kinds that they're able to sort of use these suits to have their full communication and function back. And then maybe you have some of them that start, they become at the center of like the media attention around this. You have some of that cast that are able to maybe take it down darker paths, and they're like, oh, I'm going to use mine for hacking or something like that, right? Like I'm going to, or I'm going to use the fact that I'm getting better at communicating with AI. I'm going to use that for heists. Come on, what do you want? Heists.
Yeah.
But you just have.
Sure. Go on.
Yeah, no, I don't have much for this one. I was just thinking an ensemble drama, almost like This Is Us, like an ensemble drama where you have different characters that are each using the technology, and some for like the good reasons, some for the quote bad reasons, and we just sort of use that to explore almost every facet of it. I know that's not very specific, so it's not that juicy for a podcast class event or whatever. But go ahead.
My pitch for the juice for it would be, did you read the I think it was a Wired article, maybe. There was this company that made ocular implants for people who were blind in various different ways, and they were basically like these really bad like retinas, but they were like retinas essentially, just like these little robotic eyeballs and visors that would take visual imagery and process it directly into their brains, powered by this little battery pack they would carry, and it gave people like a rudimentary form of sight again. But that company actually went bankrupt a couple decades later. So now there's all these people walking around with this technology integrated into their bodies that's failing, and they're going for like these, like kind of like black market battery packs and replacement parts from people who are trying to sell them online. And then the question is, I guess, what happened to those people?
Yeah. So like they're no longer in service. The terms of service expired, and the company is out of date, so they can no longer update their biometric implants.
Yeah. The company's just bankrupt, and so the company went away, and so there's no one for them to go to who knows how to work with this kind of technology. So what happens when you do that for a full body? You do implants for some sort of exoskeletal type thing, or even endoskeletal assistance, right, where you have someone moving and walking, or a thing reading your brain and processing language. And what happens when that fails if that company's not around anymore, right?
Oh, that's good. Okay, I'm starting to see it now. So
yeah,
this is like a road trip comedy where we have
a comedy.
Yeah, it's so
no.
It could be. So here's how it goes. It's like the catalyst is, so we have a main character that finally gets to walk and talk again after many years of paralysis due to this amazing tech. And let's we don't have to do the mech suit thing, but let's at least use the AI avatar thing that we're doing here, right?
Yeah.
And then, well, I guess my idea is more based on the mobility than it is about the AI.
Well, I really I would love the idea of like and I know I keep pitching TV shows, which I know is not the point of this class. I'm so sorry, but you could do this as a movie too, I'm sure.
Any and all ideas.
You do that kind of like future past thing, right? So you have like your plot lines that are happening in the present when they're like getting their mobility back. They're like, it's changing their lives. Mm-hmm. And you also have stuff from like later on where it's like, oh, this technology is defunct now, and like how's that impacting people? So you have these like twin arcs maybe going through of like, oh, you're having these struggles with reintegrating to the world, while at the same time down the line you're having these issues with like what do you do once that's gone almost?
Right. Okay, that's almost like different chapters in the same longer overarching story. Yeah. I guess if we're to boil this down to a single like a movie style conflict, though, my thought was we have person who gets all this tech to upgrade themselves back to being able to communicate and maybe move, and then it goes out of service, and now they have to either track down the person that made the technology, or they have to track down the last depository of the batteries for it, or they essentially have to go on a trip in order to or go on a little journey in order to find something to allow them to continue existing like this, because they're like, my life is finally back to what I've always wanted it to be. Like, I'm finally back to something like normal. If we do the mobility, then they'd be able to actually walk around themselves. They don't have to have that in the story. We could also do, if they're still not mobile but they're able to communicate now, imagine like, I'm gonna give my kid an iPad, and my kid's going to be able to go on the journey with me on the screen, and then your sort of protagonist is staying behind and communicating remotely with the person that is, I don't know. I always think like it's an estranged kid or something in this type of road trip story, so it's like it's about them bonding or reconnecting or whatever.
That's great, because you could do kind of like an Odyssey style thing where you have like a bunch of different leads that you're following, and you can do whatever with each of them.
Yeah.
I like the idea of even having like sad beat of like, I mean, because where do spare parts come from? Probably somebody died at some point.
Oh, good point. Right.
I mean, sad beat. Find the guy who died, and that helps. There's the tech there.
Or we just heist it out of them. That's just a different movie, right? We need to track down the guy that invented this and heist his batteries. That's funny. Here's a comment from Omni in the chat. Your subscription expires, and now you're stuck with the ad-laden free trial version. You have to make it to the Apple Store before they lock you out. Okay, maybe that's it. You just maybe figured it out there. That's pretty funny. That's almost like a sci-fi stoner comedy, it sounds like to me. This is good stuff. Great comments. Thank you guys for expanding on the ideas and giving us additional questions and suggestions. Should we ask for people to share their articles? Do you think, are we ready?
Sure.
Let's see what you guys got. Feel free to link articles to tech or futurology or AI-related news stories, ideally from not completely made-up websites, and we'll take a look and we'll brainstorm.
Linked earlier, even.
Yeah, we can scroll up a bit, but let's give folks a moment to share if they have new ones they were saving up. And in the meantime, what questions do you want to ask Eli while we have him about neuroscience? Now's the time. We'll give you guys I'll give him a solid 30 seconds to post articles or questions. Oh, did Joel just leave? Joel earlier said he specifically had a question about neuroscience. Oh, hey, Joel.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how to phrase it, but I guess you've been kind of answering my questions on this topic. How, is it practical in the near future to be able to read people's minds in this way?
What do you think, Eli? Oh, maybe he stepped away because we said we were giving people a moment to post their articles. Are you there, Eli, still? Okay, we'll just wait a second
Yes,
for him.
yes,
Oh, there you
no,
go.
yes. I'm having issues with technology on my end again. By which I mean user error. I keep hitting the mic button on my headset. And that's one of the big questions in like neuroethics right now, right? Is once the electrodes get good enough, right, and you could read someone's mind. I mean, that opens immense possibility. Even a bunch of years back, they did some processing of like trying to visualize people's dreams. Using electrodes that were monitoring like their visual cortex, and like once this gets good enough and the AI is able to process the information from our brains, you could take language out of there, you could take images out of there, you could take memories, you could take a lot of stuff. And I think the question is, once you can do that, are there legal protections on that, or are there not? You can take this would do amazing things for people who are otherwise limited. But it'll also create a lot of problems too. And I think the question too is once it gets good enough, I doubt you could probably ever do this kind of at range. You know what I mean? Like sitting up on a window somewhere, range reading somebody's brain. But that's not to say it's impossible one day. I don't know. I think if people would have thought this was impossible. So I think the question is, what do we do once we can read people's brains? Because we're going to be able to.
So you're weird. Saying you can't do this remotely, is what you're saying, though?
Not as far as I would understand it. The benefits that we have right now are that the electrodes in place have to get like sort of more and more detailed, and there have to be more and more of those electrodes to get a finer read on what's happening in the brain. You have to train an AI to be able to interpret those signals too. I don't see how you could do that remotely, but I'm sure someone cleverer than me will create a problem by figuring that out one day, you know?
What if they already had implants in their brain that you could remotely hack and then read?
That's even...
Would that work?
Sure. Oh, yeah, no, sure. I mean, as soon as you put something in the brain like that, that's going to create a whole host of problems, which is why the implants are very scary to me. And hopefully we'll just do non-invasive work. But yeah, if you had a chip in there, yeah, of course you could hack into it or get a read on it or who knows what, right?
There you go. Okay, so in a future society where it's more commonplace, maybe you could actually remotely, essentially hack people's thoughts.
Yeah. I wonder how commonplace some of that stuff will be. With, I mean, like the Neuralink monkeys all having extreme problems and people being very against implants. I wonder how common implanted technology will actually become if this sort of non-invasive work can even become more common. Mm-hmm. So maybe hopefully we'll circumvent most of those issues in reality, although, we can put whatever we want in your movies, Connor.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you for the question, Joel. Hopefully that clarifies that. The answer seems to be basically yes. Yes, we can read people's brains.
Yeah, yes, and some mild screaming about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Mild. I think if we can't do it remotely, you're gonna have to sneak into people's houses and bring your suitcase full of various brain hacking gear if you want to get at those juicy thoughts. Okay. He says, I wish I hadn't asked. Okay, well, that means you've done a great job answering, I think. Paul mentions maybe many people don't even get tattoos. Imagine once we start integrating more nanotech with tattoos. That would be
Sure.
cool.
I mean, they have some of that stuff right now with, what is that? Something about your blood, either something diabetic or like cholesterol or something. They have some kind of tattoo that'll read some kind of medical information for you.
Whoa.
So,
and it like changes if you're having a problem. It'll turn into like a sad face or something.
yeah. It just says, uh-oh.
Yeah, it just turns into text in Comic Sans font that says, you're dying. That's cool. Thank you for the suggestions, guys. Shall we look at the articles people have linked us?
Yeah, I've got a couple open right now.
All right. Which one do you want to start with?
Let's see here. I was trying to figure out what this glyoxal fixation thing is.
Yeah, I've never heard these words before. What is this about?
Someone linked an article. Oh, there's new articles now. I see. Okay.
Yeah, you can also scroll up and find more from earlier today if you want. An approach to solve immunohistochemical problem in neuroscience research. I don't know what this one's about. I think I'm not smart enough for this one.
Someone might have linked this as a joke when I said I want to read some really detailed abstracts. That might be what this is from.
Oh, okay. That's possible. Here's worst industrial disasters that have occurred in the world. Okay, I'm sure there's some tech-related stuff there. That's probably more like not current events as much as it is past events, though. We have physicists create a holographic wormhole using a quantum computer. I think I'm too dumb to understand that one, too. Let's look at that.
That seems like a little bit of fluff. Let's dig into that one. Where is that?
What does that even mean?
Let's see here.
Let me bring it up on the stream.
Quantum bits of information, or qubits, stored in superconducting circuits.
A holographic wormhole experiment. That sounds like something that would be in a movie or a Star Trek episode, but I just don't know what it is.
It would explode and then random things would happen. Let's see here.
It seems to be some sort of model to map black holes, maybe?
Yeah, so they're working on a quantum computer, which is using the spin of particles to analyze things more in detail than binary work, but I don't really understand what they're doing. I don't understand if this is like a simulation or a physical thing.
Somebody summarize this for us.
Who's the physicist here?
He says I picked the most clickbait title I could find. It is a clickbait title.
Okay.
It might be cool. I'm trying to understand.
Yeah. Quantum computers are so back and forth on that. Yeah. So it says the new experiment confirms that quantum effects of the type that we can control in a quantum computer can give rise to a phenomenon we see in relativity, a wormhole, the evolving system of qubits. Yeah, the wormhole isn't something we can see. While it can be considered a filament of real space-time, it's not part of the same reality we and the Sycamore computer inhabit. The holographic principle says that the two realities, the one with the wormhole and the one with the qubits, are alternate versions of the same physics. Huh.
I don't know, dude. I think my brain hurts from this one.
Yeah. Crucially, the holographic wormhole in the experiment consists of a different kind of space-time than the space-time of our own universe.
Oh, okay. That clears it up.
I think it was a simulation in a quantum computer, but I think that's still pretty major.
Okay, we're just making ourselves sound like total doofuses now. Maybe we should.
Ooh, okay. Here's a follow-up, Connor. If you go to the top of that article, there's a link to the ongoing coverage, and the link says "Wormhole experiment called into question." So
okay. Well, when it's confirmed, we'll come back to this one then.
Great.
All right. What else we got? I see This isn't even an article. This is just a YouTube video. Food delivery robots under attack from vandals and thieves. That has a nice
they had those.
simplicity
They
to it.
had those at our college, Connor. Remember?
Yeah, right as we were leaving though, so I never got to play with them.
Yeah, no, but this is like the goo tanks all over again. Yeah, people just wreck any cool tech you put in front of them.
Yeah, where they've done those little experiments where it's like, we're gonna send a little robot all the way across America, and it's only like a week before someone smashes it and vandalizes and defaces it.
What do you think about like a cute little delivery robot like this? Like a Wall-E type scenario, but they arm him with like weaponry to protect whatever packages he's delivering.
I think that's good. I think that's very good. Okay, so we have a company that's gotten their bottom line has been hit really hard by all the vandals and thieves. Here's some of them now, so we can see. Oh, these guys are just look at that. That's just disrespectful. So,
that little robot's just trying to do his job. Come on.
Yeah, he's trying to get by like the rest of us. So in this case, I guess what we'd be saying is that the company needs to. This is like RoboCop a little bit. The company needs to make an advanced version of their delivery robot to stop thieves and maybe to send a message. So it's like a prototype version of this little guy, and he's got saw blades and like, he's got unfolding sort of like taser attachments. Yeah. He can shoot up paintballs or pepper balls.
Sure. Yeah, it's like endless. It's like whatever weird, nightmarish weaponry he needs, it just folds out of him, right?
He's like a cute little Inspector Gadget, except he is just trying to work a minimum wage job, essentially.
Yeah, sure.
Like at a certain point, I guess maybe that's the midpoint of the story, is he does such a good job that people start to bring up, and he'd probably be a little smarter than most robots we'd assume would be like this. And people start to ask questions like, well, why aren't you adequately paying him for his labor? And maybe he could even turn on his employer in the last act.
Yeah, there's a shot of him going home, and it's just like a little cubby in like a big warehouse where there's a bunch of him.
This is just Wall-E meets RoboCop is what we're suggesting.
I think that's a movie. I think we got it.
All right, nice job. Thank you, Nacho, for this one. We've got the movie. We don't even need to write it now. We can just get AI to write it for us and get AI to submit it for us, and then eventually AI will just be able to generate the whole movie.
Can we have a running bit in it, Connor, where people are like, well, this would be solved if everyone just cooked at home, and everybody else goes, what, are you crazy? I'm not going to do that.
I'm not an idiot. This is funny. I like this one. This is if we're gonna rank them, this one and what was the other one I wanted to come back to that I put the pin into? The animal
specimen.
Yeah, those are my two favorites so far that we can return to as needed. Here's some questions by Omni, who's shared articles with us before in the chat. He says, what are some low-cost deterrents they would actually use? Electricity or sonic deterrents? Yeah, I think that's how we'd start, until that's no longer enough, of course.
It would escalate.
Yeah, so we start with just a loud beep beep, right? Like we start with just the catalyst happens and we roll out the guy. We roll out the little man. And then the debate or trying the lock sequence up until you break into two is going to be, he starts out trying to be nice, right? He starts out just with like a beep beep, excuse me. Please don't kick the delivery droid. Please, maybe he tries to appeal to their humanity. He starts out by being like, beep beep, I have feelings. Don't kick me, stop, please. And of course, knowing people, that wouldn't stop them at all. In fact, that would redouble their efforts. Although, they're going to just hook up like a language model to these things in a couple of years and you can actually have a conversation with the bot.
Oh my god, what a nightmare. Yeah. I don't even want to talk to my human delivery driver. I have to talk to a robot? Come on.
You don't have to, but you could. You can always be like, how's your night going, little guy?
Yeah.
And he'll be like,
hey, you want to come inside for a bit? Hang
out? So yeah, and I'll be working up to the break into two moment where the break into two would be something like the worst crime happens yet. Like some guy that's really got a grudge against these little robots. He takes the primary prototype and he smashes it up and hangs the pieces from a traffic light, as to send a message. Yeah. And we don't tolerate robot kind in my neighborhood. And then they break into two. This is like RoboCop a little bit. It's like we have to put them back together, and this time we're not playing around anymore. The company has been authorized to equip you with the most advanced weaponry that humanity has ever seen, in conjunction with the military company that, of course, the company that made these food delivery robots probably also makes drones.
Yeah.
Like, just given the reality.
Yeah, they're like in with the police force too, right? Like it's like crime is an issue, so they give them full authorization or whatever. Yeah.
Right. And then he comes out with all the weapons, and I think that up until midpoint we are sort of he's doing his deliveries. He's taking out the gang of thugs one at a time as I assume they attack him. He hacks one of them to pieces. They come back for revenge. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's soaked in blood. He shows up. He's like, "Here's your Wingstop." At the end of the, hope you enjoy. Like, rate 5 stars. Enjoy.
Would you like any ketchup? Plops blood onto the plate.
I have to go back to the store and get it. I'll be right back. He goes and comes back. He's got even more blood on him. This is pretty funny. This sounds a little comedic. Yeah. It's like, what's it called? Short Circuit. You ever see that?
Yeah, no, I haven't. But yeah, it's definitely a comedy. It's definitely a violent comedy.
A violent comedy, my favorite genre. Exactly. This is pretty good. Could come back to this one too. Let's look at, are there any other articles that people link that we want to take a look at?
Somebody linked one about time crystals, which is something that has confused me forever.
Well, now's the time to learn and get unconfused.
Ooh, and Nacho just like 19 scientific breakthroughs. That's a good list. Let's see here.
Let's start with the crystals.
I think time crystals, as I remember them, it's like crystals have a physical structural pattern, and time crystals have a pattern that repeats through time, I believe. So I think they're less crazy than they sound, but they sound really cool.
What? Hang on. It says, goodbye phone lines, hello quantum physics. So we're going to use these instead of phone lines? Scientists have found a way to amplify light using time crystals. This sounds like a fantasy novel already. Time crystals are a newly discovered phase of matter that change constantly without burning energy. What?
Welcome to science journalism. I'm sure this is a little inaccurate here. Let's see here.
My brain is just melting even trying to imagine what they mean here. They're a whole new phase of matter.
They're using I think that's a little overblown. They're using particles that spin, and then because all particles spin, right? They're just spinning, and I think they interact in a way that it's not saying this, but here we go. So in a time crystal, the photons are arranged in a pattern that repeats over time. So the photons in the crystal are synchronized and coherent, which leads to constructive interference and amplification. So it's a bunch of particles working together, essentially.
We can do this?
Yeah, it's less crazy than it sounds, I think. I'm just trying to figure out how they're using it for phones.
Right here it says this shouldn't be possible, so they shouldn't exist, but they do.
Well, so this is where I think it's a little overblown, because if you think about it, they're saying, like, these particles keep spinning, and it doesn't take energy. And it's like, yeah, that's what all particles do. That's because there's, like, heat in the universe. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, there's like, basic things particles do, and that's one of them. It would be like if I was like, this is crazy. There's, like, this electron and there's this proton, and they don't repulse each other after a certain distance. It's like, that's how, like, the nuclear forces work, right? So they're overblowing.
You tell me.
They're overblowing it a little bit, but...
Okay. In a photonic time crystal, the photons are arranged in a pattern that repeats over time. This means the photons in the crystal are synchronized and coherent. Theoretically versatile and can boost signals as they travel the length of the surface. We can significantly aid in communication, minimizing data lost over transmission, and boosting the power of wireless transmitters and receivers. I'm still not sure I fully get it enough to come up with stories based on this one.
Yeah, I don't know what you would do with this. I think I understand like 50%, and I'm not sure what to do.
All I can think of is a movie about people that are trying to get the government to invest in time crystals, but they can't explain what it is, and so it's like adaptation. They're just trying to find a way to explain to people what the subject is.
Like a newsroom style, but it's like a comedy where it's a bunch of journalists, none of whom understand what a time crystal is, but they're all trying to like publish articles about it and get a scoop.
It's just a PR movie, basically. We're just trying to like communicate to people what time crystals are and why they're so important. And I guess this is just like Don't Look Up, isn't it? At the end, we manage to not get through to people. They don't invest in the time crystals, and the Earth gets blown up or whatever.
Bunch of people heisting what they think are crystals that will let them travel in time, but they're just used for like telecommunications.
Yeah, this is used to make your phone more efficient. You idiot. Okay.
You want to check out this 19 breakthroughs? Or okay.
If you've
Or
got,
what? What were you gonna say?
Oh yeah, if you've got another article, feel free to bring it up.
Yeah, Nacho linked that 19 breakthroughs. And I think there's something about a gravity waves article too.
Are they ranked? Is like number 1 the best one, or are they unsorted? I wonder.
Oh, let's find out. Here.
Nuclear fusion.
Pretty hopeful.
Is that a breakthrough?
Cool.
I thought we had that. Explain.
We had it.
Science man.
No, so we have fission where we break things apart, right? So that's the Oppenheimer move. But fusion would be what the sun does essentially. So we have some really good milestones this past year, I believe, where some teams in I think South Korea were able to like maintain it past a certain point no one had ever done before. So we basically use like big magnets. There's a bunch of different ways you can do it, but basically using a big magnet and some way to press a lot of particles together to create a lot of heat, but not so much that it breaks the magnetic field, which keeps it under pressure, and you can generate energy from fusing particles together. It would be a totally green energy. It's very cool. There's a couple hurdles, like getting certain chemicals you need. It wouldn't be super dangerous if the field bursts, then the whole thing just sort of dissipates. It doesn't like explode. It would be huge. It'd be major.
Okay, I still don't think I understand enough to be able to grasp a like story concept from this one, but
so imagine you had like the sun on Earth, right?
Okay.
But it was contained, and all it did was generate energy. One big thing is that whoever I think is able to figure it out geopolitically, I think that's going to be huge. I think that we're going to see something akin to like the nuclear arms race, but for energy, and whoever's in charge is going to make a lot of money off of it, I think.
Okay, that could be cool.
Yeah.
I think I saw at one point, this doesn't involve nuclear power, but it was the world's largest, it's like an energy plant that's totally coated in mirrors, and it was like all God, I wish I could actually remember the details of this one, but it was like world's largest solar mirror plant thing. Where is that? It's like a crazy cool looking giant structure covered in mirrors that is used for power.
Solar. Yes. Solar plants? No.
There was one specific one that is like the world's biggest version of this that I was trying to specifically find, but that's okay. I'm a little bit out of the loop on this. Okay, so we should, I think, check if there's any other articles that we want to examine. I just scrolled through the list of breakthroughs, and there were some kind of good ideas in there, so if you have any that you see that you'd like to focus on, we can. A couple of them, the coolest ones to me were just touching on things that we've already kind of gotten into, though.
I do like number 9, injecting human cells into rat brains. I would love like a Stuart Little, but like in a lab, you know, just a little rat who's just like a guy now all of a sudden.
Okay, yeah, so that's like kind of the opposite of uplifting, I guess, if we are, or
Sure.
maybe not quite the opposite, but we are
Yeah.
we were talking before about putting the pig parts in the people. Now we're talking about putting people parts in the animals.
Sure.
So in this case, maybe that's like an Adult Swim cartoon where you have a bunch of different lab animals, and each one, you have like a rat, you have a like what else do they use? A rabbit, and a couple critters like that, and they can all talk and have more human-based personalities. Oh, maybe they're even derived from the scientists in the lab itself. They've all taken a few of their own cells and they've put them into an animal of their choosing, so they sort of see that person as like their parent almost, right? But they would have a kind of weird, complex relationship with the scientists that put them there.
Sure. Yeah.
It's kind of good.
Yeah.
Could be a cartoon, maybe like a weird sort of Homeward Bound style movie, perhaps.
Okay. Labward Bound.
Yeah. So they escape. They kill their owners and they escape from the lab. I don't think they killed anyone in Homeward Bound.
No. There's that myth that they killed a bunch of dogs, but it's not true.
Oh, the production team, you mean?
Yeah.
So we could go to a new article that people have linked, or we can examine the ones that we have. I also had a few more just in the slideshow if you wanted to just take a look.
Yeah, please. I thought you were out, Connor.
I had a few more. We don't have to settle on one yet, but let's just look at the headlines first.
Sure.
So we had lab-grown cells playing video games. And
okay.
This is really cool. We might be able to come back to this one. We also have what are called here time-traveling pathogens, which is, again, sort of a sensationalized way of referring to them, but the reality is just as interesting. It's pathogens that are frozen in the ice that are going to be unleashed by the thawing of Arctic permafrost.
Yeah.
I mean, this just sounds
I'm not
like a
worried
movie.
about it. I'm not worried about it. They they were made to infect things, so long ago. What are the odds, Connor? What are the odds?
This is just a scene in the movie where some scientist on TV is like, well, as we know, these were compatible with dinosaurs' biology. We have no reason to think these would be dangerous to human biology. Smash cut to person starts coughing until their hand falls off and a dinosaur claw emerges from their wrist stump or whatever. I mean,
a more beautiful world.
The tomorrow we can all dream of. So this definitely feels like the start of a sci-fi horror movie, like just straight up. It just
easy,
and it's such an easy cautionary tale too, isn't it? It's just baked into the premise. It's like, well, what caused this? Man's folly caused this because we never saw the effects of global warming until it unleashed. It like is a metaphor for global warming as is, right? Like it's just a real life thing that already acts as an efficient metaphor. So it kind of makes perfect sense. It starts to feel like a high concept, cohesive idea the moment that we have, lab of scientists. They're in the Arctic. Well, let's not get into the idea yet until we look at the last couple articles, headlines first.
Okay.
But yeah, this is like a Michael Crichton or like a The Thing type movie, it feels like to me.
Yeah, it's very The Thing, yeah.
Anti-aging gene injections could rewind your heart age by 10 years or more.
Huh. Just your heart's age, though?
Possibly. We could look at the article.
Yeah.
This is a Telegraph article. So, oh my gosh, is this paywalled, really?
We live in the dystopia. Beautiful. What's the subheader say?
Healthy mutant gene in super fit people can reverse the decline of heart performance in the elderly. Injecting the genes of so-called super-agers into failing heart cells regenerates them, making them function as if they were 10 years younger, scientists have found.
I do love the idea of, like, because, I mean, we've got CRISPR tech and stuff, right? I love the idea of, like, getting a bunch of Olympians and having them, like, market their genes to people.
Oh.
Or you could, if you're very healthy or you're very athletic, you could just sell your genome to someone and they could just splice it into themselves.
Or a community kidnaps an Olympic athlete and they all start taking his or her genes and almost using them as like a bank of healthy genes to make themselves all into sort of superhumans.
Sure. If we heisted Usain Bolt, is that what you're saying, Connor?
Well, I guess we're farming from him essentially. So we heisted him to begin with, and now we are drawing from him continually to use his genes to make somebody said get out in the comments. Yeah, kind of like that, except it can be it doesn't have to be the brain. You can take anyone and use their genes to improve. Like you could use them forever, right? I mean, is someone gonna die if we withdraw enough gene juice from them?
I mean, I doubt the process would kill him. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. What if we just got a bunch of Olympic athletes in the same room, and then we just put all of their genes into one person instead?
Right.
Maybe that's the way to go. Maybe we kidnap a whole Olympic team.
Sure.
So the villain captures the entire Bosnian gymnastics team.
Which, Connor, they'd be very hard to lock in a room. They'd be very good at getting out.
Yeah, that's your third act, isn't it? Where they get out and they exact their revenge. And then it would just be like the Thai action movie called Born to Fight, where a bunch of Olympic athletes beat up the terrorists. But in this case,
nice.
they would be killing a bunch of scientists using their... they take a bunch of syringes and tape them together and make a javelin and like hurl it across the lab or whatever. I mean, we all want to watch that, don't we?
I like too that the scientists might be able to have Olympic level abilities at this point, right? If they've been splicing it, but they wouldn't know how to use it very well, right? Or it would be trained. Like you still have to train that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. So they have the muscles to support it, and they're like picking up beakers and shattering them by accident and stuff like that.
Yeah, sure.
That's so funny. I kind of like a bunch of nerdy scientists upgrade themselves using advanced physical genes that they don't know what to do with. Maybe that's the core of this.
Sure. I really just love a kidnapped Olympic team, too. I think that's such a funny premise.
Yeah. I mean, how do you do it? How do you stay looking so young all the time? Oh, it's funny you ask. I kidnapped the Russian track team, and now I draw their DNA to inject into myself on a daily basis. That'd be a good, that's almost like a Bond villain type of scheme, isn't it? And at the end, the villain would be the boss because they take off their suit or whatever, and you see they've got these big bulging muscles, and they have the power of the sprinting team. They can throw javelins as hard as the javelin team, and they can hurdle as fast as the hurdling team. They'd be unstoppable.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Just sounds like
I do like
Captain Planet episode or something. Go ahead.
where the heart is a literal heart in that scenario.
Yes.
I like Omni's pitch on what if the athlete was the gene thief to enhance their own performance.
Oh, that's cool. So
Like
you're saying,
someone.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, because like the way that you would heist someone's DNA would be so fun to see on screen, right? Like they're stealing like water bottles or like old sweat towels or things, and then trying to extract things.
Sweat stuff available.
That
almost feels too easy.
Fun. Yeah, it would be if this tech was available.
If you were already an athlete, you'd have unlimited access to the sweat. You just have to give them a solid pat on the back and be like, "Good job on the track," and it's just scoop a little sweat, you know.
Okay, so there's an Olympics, but every Olympic athlete is like held in quarantine, and every competitor is trying to get samples of every other athlete to enhance themselves.
Okay, so you're sort of seeing a world where this idea is widespread, and everyone knows about this, and Olympic athletes thus become sort of targets of groups that want to steal their DNA.
Yeah. So they're trying to like both compete. It's like a sports anime almost. Like they're trying to compete and be the best, but at the same time they're trying to avoid having their DNA stolen from them. I love the Nacho. I love the title being Sweat. That's great.
Yeah, I was thinking it's like a sweat team instead of a SWAT team. So
the sweat team.
Special weapons. What's the E? Engineering genetical.
Ooh, specific wetware extraction and attack team.
That's actually good.
Thank you.
But not that good. In fact, strike it from the record. No, just kidding. So it works. I think there's something here. I'm not sure what the story. We just came up with so many good ideas that I wonder which one is the actual best one. Like, what's the actual direction to go with it? I really do like the world where Olympic athletes or just the top level physical people are worried that they're gonna have their genes stolen all the time. That feels like a solid sort of foundation for this. And then if we're to build a little bit on that, let's maybe try two different directions with it. Let's try the show and let's try a movie. So what do you want to start with?
Your pick. Go for it.
Let's start with the show.
Yeah.
So we have a world where the physically most elite, which would probably include like models and, you know, not just athletes, but anyone that is considered at the physical peak for whatever reason, is at constant risk of very easily accessible technology to steal their genes and put them into you. Therefore, they have a bunch of extra security and bodyguards and stuff. And imagine like when imagine this almost feels like Antiviral, the Cronenberg movie a little bit. But imagine like opening scene is like Michael Phelps gets up at a press conference. He's like, "I'm very disappointed to see that one of my teammates leaked my DNA, and now we've been seeing examples of, you know, Phelpsian muscles all over swimmers across the nation. And I want to just tell you that that's a deep betrayal. Like, he feels that one of his teammates. Oh, maybe it could sort of be like who was the leaker on the team. Maybe that could be the basis of that storyline. So in this case, since the show is more about the world." And setting up like a place where interesting things can happen. Let's sort of set an arc in motion. Let's say this is going to be we're going to start following a Phelps type athlete. He's the top. Let's make him a track star rather than a swimming star. So his name is Feichel Melps, and Feichel had his DNA leak, and that has led to. Do you think it would devalue their genes if they were leaked, or I guess it would, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So here's my follow up for you is that like the Olympic Commission has pretty strict rules on doping practices. Mm-hmm. Do you think that if your genes are just like out there, it becomes a problem for like competing for some reason, or is it just no? I guess not, because you would still have them. But
yeah, I guess the concern would be that this might have to take place in a world where the sort of people who are super physically elite or fit or perfect in one way or another are a little bit rarer. So this might be post apocalypse or something like that, or like there's a lot of food scarcity or something like that in this world. So that we have to worry even more about like who has the right genes so that they can actually survive. Maybe that would actually amp up the intensity a little bit.
The Olympics are still going on. Yeah.
They would be. They might. Yeah, they've been going on since the BC times. So, I guess I'm sort of drifting away from the athlete idea. If we go ahead.
So Omni pitched, what about genetic bottlenecking? If everyone had Phelps DNA, it would cause problems in the genome. I'm going to go a step further. If you're Michael Phelps and everyone has your DNA, that's just gross. You go on a date with someone and they're partially you, that's kind of gross, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Or is it very romantic?
Great question. I think it...
Or both? I don't know.
Learning something about you, Connor.
I don't, if somebody literally decided to splice my genes into them, I'd be a little flattered.
Sure. Ooh, yeah. That's if you in this world, if you fall in love with someone, you guys might maybe you splice each other. So you become
yeah.
like a hybrid self. You know.
Do you take these genes to be your lawfully grafted DNA?
In sickness and in health.
It's sick, exactly. It would have to be. This is good. I feel like we're building out the world more than finding the story in it still. I like maybe a leak could be, like, I wonder what the catalyst for the story is. Like, maybe a leak is not the best catalyst. Maybe the leak is instead someone on Michael Phelps' team has a leak, and that causes everyone to crack down on security. Because now we're super worried that we're entering a new era. Like, maybe it was leaked in a way, or maybe one of the athletes was just like, they shook a fan's hand or something, and the fan pulled a hair out of their wrist, and then later was able to get their skills. So now we're cracking down and we're starting to isolate all the Olympic athletes a lot more.
Ooh.
So then I guess maybe we could frame the show as the build up to an Olympic event that's going to be at the end of the season 1 or something, or maybe the last few episodes of season 1. So therefore our main character has to be super careful about not only the relationships he gets in, like the whole going on a date with someone and finding out you have part of their DNA in you would be a scene obviously in the pilot. So he's like, I can't trust anyone not to steal my perfect genes. So then we have to ask, what does he have to actually do? Like, what is his goal in that case? Which I'm gonna keep talking until I can land on what that. And maybe you have an idea.
I have a B plot to pitch you, which is that one of the other teams, like China or Russia or something, has like a contestant who looks extremely like our primary character, like very clearly genetically doped to the extent that he's like played by the same actor in a beard or something. You know,
a whole team of them.
Oh, I was gonna say just one, but that's really funny if every single one on the team looks like a weird off-brand clone of him.
Yeah, every Chinese and Russian athlete looks like Michael Phelps that was an action figure melted down in the microwave a little bit. That's kind of cool, actually. Maybe this is the way to go. It turns out all the other athletes... Oh, yeah, maybe the leak is a good catalyst then, because the catalyst is now every other athlete in the world is starting to use my genes and get a leg up, and now I have to compete against a bunch of other versions of myself.
Yes. You have to find a way to be the best version of yourself. This is wonderful.
Maybe this has a nice metaphor kind of character arc built into it as well.
Yeah.
This is pretty good, actually. Okay, cool. So it's still, I guess, maybe it could be a movie. It still feels a little big, like, it still feels like a show. But if let's maybe think of the movie version, let's just center it around one Olympic Games, right?
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, one game. I think you could even really, I don't know how much you could fast track it, or what your viewpoint on it would be, but I think you could really pump up the inciting incident to just like jump into that world and that place where that has already happened, right?
Yeah. Maybe the catalyst in that case is the first big track event, and imagine the starting line. Like he's in the middle of the starting line. Imagine slow pan left. He's like, what?
It's everybody. It's him.
He's slow pan right, and it's dolly zoom on Michael Phelps as he's like, everyone in this lineup looks almost like me. What is going on? And then he has to run his first event against other versions of himself that each one might have different elements of his personality maybe kind of built into them, at least the top athletes, because they'd probably be thinking, we have all the physical parts of him, but now we just have to imitate the mental parts of him in order to win. So we have to mimic his kind of personality. There'd be some funny scenes where they give press conferences and they're sort of acting just like him.
Copying his answers,
copying his mannerisms and answers, exactly, yeah. And this sort of becomes a nice metaphor about the authentic version of you. Yeah.
And I think about because a lot of, I think there's a beautiful lesson in there about sports too, about like, oh yeah, just do it on your own. Don't take a bunch of weird drugs, right? Yeah. It's an anti-doping campaign. We can get Olympic funding for this, right?
And also it's part of the sort of message of it is you don't have to try to be someone else to succeed. Like you can be your own person.
Yeah.
This actually turned out kind of good. It took us a bit to land on it, but
there's just a lot in there,
Competing in the Olympics where everyone's a version of you is really good.
Yeah, you would only need to pay one actor. It'd be great.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, it's save some money there. I had this idea at one point of a scientist that makes a bunch of clones of himself to make a band. Maybe you could even do.
So sad.
We could do the sequel for this movie would be the nerdy scientist goes around either, like sneakily harvesting the DNA of the world's top musicians, right?
Yeah.
So that way we have like a clone that's sort of like Mick Jagger or whatever, and you have like he makes like the dream team, right? He has to dig up a beetle, maybe. Wait, there's a living beetle or two, isn't there?
Yeah, man. But
which
ones? Paul's still around.
Okay.
And I think did Ringo die or is Ringo still around?
I don't know. Someone tell us. But
I only know about bug beetles. I don't know about music beetles.
Exactly. So he's trying to make the dream team for his band to play, and then obviously we have a lot of sort of clone shenanigans. We got to make the clones do what they're supposed to do. We have them actually imitating the worst traits of the people that you clone to bring them in. So, like, I don't know, you pick some guitarist that has really eccentric tendencies or is a real smug showboat or something like that, and you think you have your dream team together, but then you realize that all the top musicians wouldn't actually work well together because they have clashing sort of personality traits and musical styles that the scientist would be like, I never expected that I'd have to wrangle all those, right? I thought I'd just put them together in the same room. And on a certain logical level, it makes sense. You put the top musicians together, you're like, okay, there's the best band.
I love that this is just a movie with a lot of... It takes a long way to get there, but it's just a movie about being a band's manager. I love that that's the core of it.
Well, I think he's probably the front man. He's probably the singer or something like that, right?
Okay.
Like he and maybe he's prepping for it makes a sort of 80s kind of John Hughes sort of feel to this when it's like much. he's got like a high school reunion coming up. And he went into genetic science.
It's not cool enough to be able to clone living people. He's like, I have to have a band too.
Yeah, I have to make girls aren't going to like me if I just have the ability to play God. They want me to play the sax. So he's got this event coming up that he wants to do a big showcase at. So it's like a high school reunion where everyone else from his class is super successful. They're all like actors and athletes and things. And he's like, I never got to do anything really cool. I'm just like a nerdy lab guy. So he decides to sort of reinvent himself as... This is like a Will Ferrell comedy almost, isn't it? He decides to kind of reinvent himself as a rock star that has all the best musicians in the world on his sort of team. They don't look exactly like them, but they have similar traits. And he figures that's going to be the way that I'm going to blow everyone away and earn the respect that I never got as a scientist. This is kind of good too.
I like it. I think the end beat of that is surely that everyone at the reunion is like, when it doesn't work out, they're like, no, you made these guys? That's so cool. Like, we do respect the science.
Yeah. I mean, it would have to be... Yeah, I guess that if this was that's a pretty easy sort of dramatic argument for it to end on is we just end on this moment of like, all along we did think the science stuff was cool. It was you just weren't secure enough. Like that. It's about the character trying to find the confidence in himself, in order to be his authentic, person.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
We got 10 minutes. These ended up pretty good. Should we go back to a favorite and expand on it further?
Sure.
It's your choice.
This isn't a movie pitch, but the Pong brain thing.
Oh,
I wanted to say it'd be really funny to be like beat online by a bunch of brain cells in a little jar having gamer rage, I think that's delightful.
I mean, in the what do we call it, the 2002 version of this problem is I got trolled by a bunch of racist 12-year-olds on Xbox Live. The 2052 version is I got trolled by a bunch of lab-grown brain cells on Xbox Live. I just got pwned by a brain in a jar on Call of Duty, and then it used an AI-assisted module to insult my mother.
Yeah, it uses the thing from the other article to read its own brain and have an avatar.
Yeah, exactly. This would almost work for a kind of esports story, wouldn't it? This would be like the big boss of the esports movie.
Yeah.
Because
Conor,
go ahead.
Did you read the under image? These 800,000 lab grown. Oh no, go back. Yeah. The 800,000 lab grown brain cells can play a 1970s video game, albeit badly.
Oh, they just started, bro.
So mean.
Yeah, but imagine, give it 20 years, they'll be fragging noobs on Unreal Tournament.
Sure.
Wow, how old am I? Fragging noobs on Unreal Tournament. They'll be hitting blocks on Minecraft? What do people do now? That's probably even old now.
Yeah. I mean, they still play it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Or smashing noobs on stunt meme dancing on people in Fortnite. That's what it is, probably. Right?
They don't really do a lot of Fortnite.
No, what's the new thing?
I don't know, like a Genshin Impact, maybe.
What is that?
Yo, Connor, you got old, man.
I did. I wasn't even looking. Ugh. Look at me referencing Unreal Tournament. Well, I like the idea that the final boss, it's like the Rocky IV boss. Because in Rocky IV, the final fighter that Rocky faces is like a Russian super soldier, basically, right? So this would be such a great reveal. Like the midpoint of this esports movie is we finally make it to the big tournament, and this guy that's been beating our team this whole time that we've been practicing just to beat him, it's revealed he's actually a clump of cells in a jar.
Brain in a jar. He's got... Do you think that he should be lab grown, or should it be a gamer who's so motivated that he got rid of his body?
He died while he had an all weekend marathon, or he spent like 7 days doing nothing but playing what'd you say, Genshin Impact, and then he passed away, and it's what he would have wanted. His mother was like, he definitely would have wanted this, so we're gonna put his brain into a jar so he can keep doing what he loved for all eternity. This is kind of good. This could almost be a Disney Channel movie.
Oh, it weirdly could be with the right tone. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's got that vibe of like, gamers are the cool sports athletes of this time or whatever that we imagine. Like all the kids in school want to be the elite, the top esports star. They want to be the next Twitch sensation / big tournament winner or something like that, right? Yeah. This is like a high school coming of age underdog sports story where they realize at the midpoint that their main opponent is a clump of cells in a jar, and maybe they have to use this tech somehow to improve their own team. Maybe we have to... The only way to win is to put my brain in a jar and have it interface with the computer too. God, that'd be so... Maybe it's not a Disney Channel anymore, is it?
Yeah, that's a little too far for Disney.
But we could... I mean, that just... Maybe that's the kind of all is lost moment. So right before we break into 3, we're sort of asking, how far are you willing to go to win?
Yeah.
And obviously, the more positive, upbeat ending would be, I'm not willing to put my brain in a jar in order to be the best, or maybe I'm okay losing to the brain in the jar. But then we could also go. Go ahead.
I think with the Feigl Melps thing, very similarly, it's about like finding your own humanity or whatever. You're the best on your own terms, right?
That seems to be a common theme for a lot of these. Although I think if I had my way, if I had my dithers, as they say, I would have it that. Our break into 3 is we have a team member that was like really poor health the entire time, like really bad asthma, like a lot of heart problems or something like that. He realizes he's nearing the end of his life, and so he's
dying from asthma?
I don't know, that's just a symptom of whatever he has. Okay, so he's got like a bunch of health problems all through the movie, and we're hinting at it, And then finally he enters his dying phase. God, I'm trying to find a way where he doesn't have to kill himself to do this, but he naturally accelerates his death process so that maybe even early in the movie he's like, I'm in the tournament because I only have a month to live or something like that, right? And then our break into 3, he's like, this is the only way that we're going to stand a chance. I will allow my brain to be extracted and to put in the computer so I can hang out with my friends for the rest of our lives. That's kind of sweet. Okay, that's kind of...
There's a positive spin. Yeah.
Kind of brought it back a little bit.
Still kind of a bummer, but it's a positive spin. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say this way: the hero learns a lesson from that, and maybe even that teammate is like, "This is my most authentic self. Now you be yours." You know what I mean? That way, the hero doesn't have to sort of put his brain in the jar. He can use this sort of new teammate. Maybe that's like the central relationship of the movie. Yeah. That would work well. So he sort of learns that lesson from this guy, and then they get to hang out with their friend forever that they spent most of the movie thinking they'd lose. Actually, let's just make it so that they're entering the tournament for him specifically. It's like his last wish. So all the friends decide to join. Yeah, actually, framing it around this actually makes a lot of sense. The central relationship of the movie is that friend who we enter the tournament just to give him one last kind of hurrah or whatever. Go ahead.
Nice. I like that a lot. I'm gonna pitch you on a separate third act. Okay. Just because the visual is very funny to me, which is that you have the team is losing against the brain in the jar, and they hate the brain in the jar, but it winds up being like they wind up stuck in some situation together, and they wind up being buddies, and they have to take the brain out, for all the human things that it never got to do when it was like an esports champion. So it's them with like a brain in a jar out for a night on the town, and they become friends by the end, and the brain in the jar throws the match to let them win.
Oh, okay.
I
So did
specifically
you say this was it was grown just to be a sports star?
No. It's like you were saying, like a guy who dies and like wills
Oh,
his
right.
brain to be yeah. But so it becomes about like the brain in the jar, and it's like, oh, like you were too dedicated to this thing, man. Like you should have been a person too. Mostly just as an excuse to like take a brain in a jar around and have wacky hijinks with it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking also like if it was so this is it's originally on the enemy team, right?
Yeah.
Or are you saying it's on the heroes team? Oh, it's on the enemy team.
No. Enemy team.
But
it's
we
their
take
rival.
it out on another town, and then we convert it to our side, essentially.
Yeah, or it's like it's like a sports rivals movie, right? They're rivals, but they wind up in a situation that makes them friends somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For this to maybe to amp this one up a little bit, we could say that in this case, the enemy AI or the cells in the jar would actually be grown just to be the best esports player, right? So
Sure.
it never had a life as a human. So taking it out on the town would actually mean more to it.
Yeah.
And would be more of a new experience for it, as opposed to like, well, I remember going out on nights in the town. But if it was like that's all it ever knew, then it kind of acts as a metaphor for people that's all
nice.
that's all they ever want to do is like all they do is play the game 10 hours a day or whatever. That's like they get a lot of pressure from family and parents. They're like, if I'm gonna be an esports player, I have to be the best and I have to make money, or else what's the point of any of this, right? And so if the cells were grown just to do that, it's just like the ultimate gamer bro in a jar, right? And it doesn't know what it's like to have an actual human connection beyond saying GG guys. So we have to teach it about humanity in the third act.
Yeah.
And then I guess the final we have like I can only imagine we're taking it to strip clubs and stuff, and like
100%.
I mean,
like a Ranchi's 80 comedy segment. Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely take it to a strip club. We take it to the water slide. This is pretty stupid, but pretty funny. I kind of really like it.
Okay, cool.
And again, could sort of fit in that Disney sort of tone if you play it just right, or it could be kind of like a Jonah Hill, that like Jump Street style tone to it too.
Yeah.
We're in our last couple minutes. We have gone through. What do you think are the lessons? What do we take away from this, Eli?
That brain reading is scary. But all you can do is be your best self. All you can do is be the Phelps that you are, and befriend the brain in the jar, right?
Yeah. No matter how many cells and genes that you splice, it's always you that decides the you that you want to be. You've got to make those choices for yourself. And I think also we learned if you don't know what to do with the plot.
Right. We're here for that reason. Heist it.
Heist the thing, or heist a heist with the thing.
I think it's pretty interesting, Connor, that going into this, I pretty much figured that we would just have a bunch of horrifying monsters, knowing the two of us. And I like that most of our premises weren't a bunch of horrifying monsters hunting people down.
No, a lot of comedies, a lot of heartwarming stuff.
Yeah.
Can I show you the Vice article that I didn't end up using?
Yeah, sure. What?
I mean, could happen.
What is happening here? Can you explain this to me? This has a lot going on.
Well, there's some social media articles of people and videos and clips and people that took in the forest of Peru. They thought they were aliens, so that's why there was a lot of attention around it. Turns out, according to this Vice article, that they were illegal poachers and miners with jetpacks.
Where does the jetpack come from, though? That's so crazy. That's like saying, hey, don't worry, it wasn't Bigfoot, but it was a vampire. Don't be worried.
Well, I've seen jetpacks we have working jetpacks now.
Sure, but why are
them over the water?
Why are a bunch of miners using them in like the Peruvian forests, right? Like
it's a good
doesn't
question.
Make any sense.
I mean, you can feel free to read the article if you'd like more info here, but I would say probably to harass and attack the people in the communities that they want to displace so they can do the mining.
Huh.
I don't know if they're intending to come off as aliens, but they're at least, how in like the Amazon, there's a lot of illegal forestry, mining, and disruptive practices like that displace indigenous communities and things like this so they can steal their land and profit off of it.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what I'm thinking it could be. And also this is just a cool premise for a movie, even if this article is not legit. Like maybe I have no idea of the authenticity of this, but it could happen.
It looks, I found a couple articles. I'm Googling around. This is just a great movie on its own. You don't got to do anything to this. You don't got to bump this up at all.
No, we've got
it looks
a couple plot points already.
Yeah. It looks like it was gangs and stuff. So you're right. There was like some bad men involved here.
I
Foreign
think
mafias extracting gold from the mines. It looks like.
Oh shit! Gold thieves with jetpacks.
Uh-huh.
This is maybe the note that I want to end us on, because we are out of time, so we can come back to this later. I'd love to talk more about this idea specifically, and if you guys have ideas in the chat, let us know. But maybe the lesson we'll end on today is something that I was thinking about as I posted this article up here. You know how cool it would be for there to be jetpacks? Well, in the future, you know who else will have them? Murderers. Thanks for joining us, guys. This has been Sci-Fi Story Ideas.
How uplifting.
Yeah. Join us for more Script Camp classes coming up. We have writing for young readers. We promise it's not going to be a gross, weird class like this one. That's next weekend, September 10th, 12 to 2 on WordCamp. We have new sessions of Feature Boot Camp, September 10th, 10 to 12. That's going to be running Sundays from 10 to 12. New session of Pilot Boot Camp, September 15th, 6 to 8, running Fridays 6 to 8. And then we have new session of Novel Boot Camp. That is going to be September 30th, 12 to 2. Any last words before we part, Eli? Any last words? I'm like, you're going to die.
You've had me in like a Saw-style bear trap this entire time. No,
slowly filling
Conor...
the slime.
No, this has been an absolute blast. Thank you for having me on. This was so fun.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your science knowledge and expertise, which is much more than mine, of course, and all this great pitches for shows and movies.
Yeah, man.
All right, we'll wrap up here for today. Thank you guys for joining us. We hope to see you soon at your next Script Camp class or event. Have a great rest of your night, guys.